Very much, Mr. Speaker. The hypocrisy of Sinn Fein knows no bounds. In today's motion, no mention of the terrorist attacks on the 7th of October. No mention of the years the Israeli people have suffered at the hands of the anti-God alliance from the countries that surround them. No mention of the abuse the Jewish people suffer and continue to suffer right across the world. Mr. Speaker, every country has a right to defend itself against terrorism and fulfil its obligations to protect its people and that of innocent life. Whenever a motion comes before this House, it's worth checking who has signed it. Today, we are asked to support a motion that condemns war crimes, attacks on civilians, the use of starvation as a weapon, the bombing of hospitals, and the traumatising of innocents. No problem with any of them phrases. Lofty words, strong language, phrases designed to stir the conscience. But then, when I look down to the bottom to look at the signatures, what do I see? I see the name of Pat Sheehan. This member would have us believe he cares about international law, about humanitarian principles, about the wounds inflicted on civilians. But let us test that claim. This is a man who bombed a cash and carry, not a military base, not a government facility, but a commercial business. A man who went on hunger strike alongside Thomas McElwee, who burned a young woman to death in a shop, not in a war zone, but in my constituency of North Antrim. And this House is now to be lectured by his comrade on the sanctity of civilian life. Sinn Fein want to talk about the psychological and emotional wounds suffered in Gaza. What about those inflicted at Claudy, in Le Mans, or on Bloody Friday? Sinn Fein speak about emotion, about the orphans of Rafah, but had no tears for the orphans of Enniskillen. The motion condemns the bombings of hospitals.
Point of order, Mr. McGuigan.
Speaker, I allowed a bit of latitude, thinking that maybe the Speaker would interject and bring the motion back to the topic that we're discussing here, but I want to raise it through a point of order.
And if you can't get back to Gaza, that'll be useful.
I am comparing those that have brought this motion, and I am looking at judging them and testing the claims that they have brought with us. Happy to give way to Mr. Brooks.
Remember, agreed that earlier in this debate we were asked to turn our faces to what was happening in Gaza, but many would like us to turn our faces away from the legacy that was left by the party opposite.
And Mr. McGuigan has laid that bare, that he wants us to turn away from what his party has supported in the past. So we are talking about the hospitals and condemning the bombing of hospitals. But let us remember, on the 2nd of November 1991, the IRA bombed Musgrave Hospital. 2 were murdered, 10 injured. One of them was a 5-year-old girl.
Mr. Galston, thank you. You've covered that quite well now, so if you can get back to Gaza, please.
And I'm moving on next to the targeting of paramedics and aid workers. Yet, the murder of Gerald Tucker, a 37-year-old hospital porter, was shot as he left the hospital morgue at the Royal because he was an off-duty UDR man. The proposers condemn the denial of humanitarian aid. Yet to this day, Sinn Fein denies the families of the disappeared even a grave to weep beside.
Mr. Galston.
The motion speaks of war crimes, yet it has in its genesis a movement that planted bombs in pubs, in shops and in hospitals right across Northern Ireland. When Sinn Féin and its members are compared...
Mr. Galston, please. I've asked you 3 or 4 times to come back to Gaza. That's what the debate is about. You wanted to make a point. You've made that point. You've exhausted that point. So if you're going to continue on that line, then I'll ask you to desist. But if you want to speak about Gaza, you can continue.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And I will draw my remarks back to some of the phrases that we've heard today. We've heard the phrases such as human rights. We've heard phrases such as war crimes and crimes against humanity. We've heard phrases such as ethnic cleansing. We've heard phrases death, destruction and devastation. My oh my, does that not sum up Sinn Fein and the IRA and what they have bestowed upon this country for absolute years? And to see Miss Hargey chuntering from the sideline, she was the woman that was in the toilet when Robert McCartney was murdered. My goodness, they like to turn their face, they don't like to be reminded of what we have. Mr. Speaker, all human life, the loss of innocent lives is wrong, and I must come back to the point. Sinn Féin, absolutely, that's in their DNA, bringing this motion forward. But I do challenge the SDLP and the Alliance. Please, oh please, reflect on your position. Do not attach yourself to the bedfellows of Sinn Féin and their terrorist supporting actions. My goodness, what you're saying is you can't support the arms was taken out of the motion. You remove the arms, you remove the support from Israelis, what will happen? The anti-God alliance will surround them. That's what Sinn Féin want. Sinn Féin want free rein for their terrorist supporting sympathisers, the terrorists and Hamas.